Hi, welcome to MediatorPodcast.com, a podcast and video series about mediation, negotiation, and collaboration. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I'm a divorce mediation expert in St. Louis, Missouri. During this episode, we will discuss conflict resolution for nonprofit associations with former IRS auditor Mike Gregory. Mike is a mediator in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He is the author now of 13 books regarding various topics, and he also has created the collaboration effect. He's a frequent speaker and uses mediation techniques to de-escalate situations. Welcome, Mike. The terminology that we've talked about, beliefs, values, positions, let's break some of these down a little bit, because to most people, all of these terms seem like the same term, and there's not a distinguishing piece of it. But in mediation, these things become very important of how you communicate with people during the mediation.
Well, let me take an issue that everybody will agree is divisive in nature: abortion. And if I say abortion, we'd already know there are two sides and where both sides stand relative to that, right? And both sides know their position. Their positions are based on very strong beliefs that go very deep with them. On the other hand, they both have values. And we want to focus always on values and not beliefs. So in values, we talk about respect and trust and being straightforward and open and accepting and being responsible with one another on this topic we're going to talk about. And when we begin to talk about values, things come up like, we don't want to have unwanted pregnancies. We don't want to have kids who are going to be throwaway kids because parents don't want them. How do we help nurture homes where people are going to be loved as they grow up? When you begin to focus on the values behind this, folks can work together to find ways to resolve what those issues might be. I'm from Minnesota. There was an experiment on what I just talked about here in the Minnesota legislature with the governor and the House and the Senate on this type of conversation. And that allowed them to proceed in a way that they could, one, talk to each other, which there wasn't good dialogue before that, but talk to each other and then focus on what their values were. And then what can we do to address the areas we feel that we're in common with one another. So I just bring that up as values. I've mediated between gangs. These are people who've killed each other, right? And I have a common interest question that I ask relative to listening, and that is, what would you like to have happen? And with one gang leader, he couldn't tell me what he wanted. I don't think he knew what he wanted to have happen. He just knew he wanted to stop. He had lost a close relative and other relatives who'd been murdered, and so had the other side. And in this process, as I worked with him, at one point this gang leader said, if I reach an agreement with the other side, I'm dead, because members of my own gang will kill me. And then he said, if I don't reach an agreement with the other side, I'm dead, because the other side will find a way to kill me. So either way, I'm dead within a year. Mike, can you put me in a witness protection program? I said, I can't do that. I have no authority for that. No, I can't do that. But let's work with this a minute. Who wants to kill you within your own gang if you reach an agreement? And he identified two people's names. So I said, well, right now you're negotiating on behalf of your gang. What if we bring on you plus those two, and then let's bring on 3 other people for a total of 6. And with the 6, you 6 collectively are going to work on the negotiation with the other gang. And they came up with let's call it a peace treaty between the two parties on a division of where the line will be between these two gangs, which allowed a de-escalation and no longer violence between the two different parties. So even in a very difficult situation like that, and I've got a host of questions that I've got something called a pocket guide with collaboration effect, but it's about connecting relationships. That person had to really believe me and trust me. So I had to do a lot of homework ahead of time to learn a lot about this person in the background. And law enforcement could tell me all the negatives about this guy. But within the community, there are people who had lots of positives about this guy too. And so learning, people are not 0-1, black and white, right and wrong. we're human. We have good parts and bad parts within us. And part of it is reaching out to the values of the good part, to work with the other party, and both sides in this case, to resolve those issues. Now, those two parties were never in the same building at the same time, just because of conflict there. So they were brought in at different times and had discussions. And this lasted a long time. That little soundbite I gave you lasted a year. But eventually we had a peace between these two parties.